Take me out to the ball game.
And now, Twitch It Off and Media presents The Joys of Mudville, a look at the current state of baseball. Now here are your hosts, Scott McIntyre, Andy Tom Chesson, and James Christopher. And welcome back to The Joys of Mudville, now proudly presented by Patrick Larson. If you want to learn the history of minor league baseball hats, follow him on Twitter. I'll put the link down here. Now, Scott, you got the big mug of coffee. How much of this is the hangover of beating Gonzaga? By the way, we'll pour one out to Eric Mertens, Eric the Peanut Guy, and former Gonzaga person. So what do you think, man?
Just want to point out that the
Zags. It's a stupid name. They're the Zags. Gonzaga Zags. You're struggling over it. They're the Zags.
Given their history,
can't come up with anything else. Zag. It's in the
given their history in the NCAA tournament. Are they going to rename the school to Gonzaga? Because they seem to be gone early way too often. Anyway, I will say the Arkansas Razorbacks basketball team this season is the first time that a team has beat a number one regular season opponent, Auburn, and followed that up by beating a number one team in the postseason, Gonzaga, who I will forever call that name. Yeah, it's a good day.
So what's the appropriate celebration for an Elite Eight? Is that couch burning, or are you just still sleeping with your sister?
Yeah, are we flipping cars yet? Where's flipping a police car? Because that's what I want to be part of.
Flipping a police car doesn't come until like Final Four. I think it's a Final Four victory because you don't want to do it on championship day because there's a lot going on then. So you do it in between. Got it. Or you're burning houses down we're just lighting up whole neighborhoods on championships. So yeah, some couches are gone. We're not flipping cars yet, but we're shaking cars really hard.
One thing I wanted to ask both of you guys, something struck me funny because you all three of us come from football schools, right? Right. And then to a lesser extent, other sports, I might say for UT, a bigger extent, like baseball and things like that. But I found it shocking that if Texas had won and gone to the Sweet 16, it would have only been the 8th time in school history versus having made the NCAA tournament more than any other, won the second or third most college football games. I thought it was so interesting of how bad our basketball has been. So what about you, like A&M? Does it have a good basketball history?
No, of the three of us, and this is all Scott, Arkansas by far has the best basketball legacy. By far. From the triplets, even Sidney Moncrief, just guys.
You start dropping Lanny Van Eman knowledge on me, I'm going to be blown away here. Good grief.
Y'all might have to get married after that.
Oh, wow. Now we're not related.
A&M's basketball legacy, we had a great coach and we'd be competitive in conference, but the tournament at that point was 32 teams. It was harder to make it into. It is always interesting to me, and I'm not digging on your horns, but with everything else with Texas, we're the best, greatest, everything. Don't look at our record. Historically, we're fantastic. I was at school at Texas.
I'm happy for you to look at the record.
With the BMW team, with Blanks, Mays, and Wright. That was the first time they were worth anything in forever prior to Lemons being their coach. And even then, he was like, every now and then they'd be a 60% win team kind of team. They've nenever been historically good. They act like they've been historically good. And to be fair, they spend money now like they're historically good. So I hope they get there.
I'm going to push back on that. I don't know that we act like, I think we walk around joking about basketball being the biggest afterthought ever. No one goes. The students don't go.
Well, I will base this on the fact that I do spend way too much time reading Orange Bloods, and somehow the algorithm on Twitter makes people think that I want to get Longhorn news. I don't, but there's a lot of really proud.
Well, look, I don't even read Orange Bloods
of everything.
I'm smart enough to stay away from Jeff Ketchum and his crew. The only one I actually follow, Anwar Richardson, because he's about the most objective one you can have because he's from Florida and got hired. But I'll put the record of the other sports I mentioned up against anybody's.
No. And I will say this, as proud as you are of the University of Texas football team, that's your baseball team. Your baseball record, your baseball history is an elite school.
Right.
Well, yeah, because for 42 years they played on a field with a cliff running through the outfield. It's a little home
But
field
still,
advantage.
you gotta
I'm just saying. I mean,
you got a goat, you got stuff. Fine. But that's, I mean, if you're going to look at University of Texas athletic prowess, yes, you've got a proud football history, not the number of national championships that some other schools that you compete with for that kind of blue blood air have, not the Alabamas, the Michigans, but baseball, that is, you are elite, and you've been elite for the history of your program. And that's what makes, for the rest of us, those couple of down years that you have every 20 years really fun.
What about swimming and diving? You want to come at me about that? Because
I absolutely don't, because you're a swimming and diving school, and evidently volleyball.
Yeah, volleyball. Well, let's talk a little bit about a different kind of ball, since we have now only about 18 minutes left in the show. Very weird, very different free agency period coming out of the lockout. Andy, I'll start with you on this. What surprised you the most as far as players signing, and then for lengths and amounts they signed for?
I don't, and I'm sure I'm just not thinking of a particular contract. The contracts didn't really surprise me or shock me outside of Carlos Correa's being for a short term and for the money that he wanted, because it really didn't meet either of those criteria. He wanted $40 million a year because he wanted to get past Lindor, and he wanted a 10-year contract. Neither of those things happened. I think the most surprising thing outside of that, though, was Trevor Story telling everybody he wanted to be a shortstop and then signing with the Red Sox to play second base.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it's for a year, because I think Bogaerts has an opt-out after this year. So the Red Sox have basically told Xander Bogaerts, good luck, because we have a shortstop now. But I think that's, and if we're talking winners, I think the Red Sox really positioned themselves well with that signing and a couple of other things they did. And I say that because the people who spent big still aren't going to win with those guys. I'm looking at you, Arlington.
Yeah, Scott. I mean, we'll talk about the Rangers a minute, Scott. Like they seem to be throwing. It was incomprehensible, the amount of money they were throwing when it's not a team ready to compete. In 2015, the Astros saw the writing on the wall and started to add pieces at that point. But this just seemed really weird to me.
Yeah, it makes you almost wonder if internally, if they see something different that nobody else is seeing right now. I mean, the amount of money that's being thrown in for guys that played the same position, for crying out loud. The Rangers, I don't know how the Rangers expect to compete in that division with what they currently have on their roster, and I don't know why they continue to, in my opinion, they continue to make the same mistakes in free agency that they were making 20, 30 years ago with the contracts that they're signing, the guys they're bringing in. It's like, this hasn't, it's almost like it's World War I battle tactics. Well, what are we going to do, General? We're going to march right at them. Well, isn't that what we've done the last 17 times? Right. They'll never expect us to be stupid enough to try it an 18th time. It kind of feels like how the Rangers are approaching free agency. And in the division they're in, you got to come hunting for bear to take down some of these. The A's are always going to find a way to be competitive. The Stros are always competitive. The Angels are trying to get it together. They're
going to hit a bunch.
They're going to hit a lot
up until they start spraining ankles.
Yeah, really. One guy's going to hit and pitch. He does it pretty well. But so I don't know. I don't know.
Him.
They did. I
can't explain the Rangers. I can't explain them. I mean, I know your feelings on them, Jim. So you're perfectly fine with this free agency strategy that they keep using.
Yeah, the Corey Seager deal felt like a sort of lesser version of the A-Rod deal, and I have a feeling it's going to be just as successful for them.
For the Yankees, you mean?
What's that?
It's going to be successful for the Yankees.
For the Yankees, I mean, yeah, right. Like it could be that successful for the Yankees. I do want to talk a little bit about. I'm actually a fan of the Shohei Ohtani rule. For those that don't know, it basically means that if Ohtani's hitting for himself and pitching, he gets pulled out. He gets to stay in that sort of DH spot. Issues with it at all, or do you think it's a natural evolution of the game?
I thought it should have always been that way. Personally, it makes sense. This way makes sense. To have to have a guy that if he's able to hit and pitch, but then his arm's exhausted, you can pull him, but you can't put in another DH. It was like, come on. I mean, that's kind of hurting guys that could be true two-way stars. I think this is a good rule fix. I don't think, I hate to call it a change because I think it's such a good fix.
Andy, any thoughts on
Yeah,
it?
well, I mean, if it's getting any noise outside of our little triumvirate here, I don't really understand why, because it's literally one guy we're talking about. Yes, someone else. The rule could apply to any pitcher, but no other pitcher's doing this. So
Yeah, Greinke's pissed.
I'm sure he is. But the Royals it's probably in his contract with the Royals. You do whatever you want. You want to play first base. You want to eat Twinkies. We don't care. Just do whatever you want. You want to do yoga on the field? Knock yourself out. We're happy to have you, big guy.
Well, I was really thinking between Greinke and Baumgartner. I mean, those are the only two other guys I could think of that could convince some manager to put them in the lineup as an everyday, or not an everyday hitter, but to be able to swing the bat on the days they pitch as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was the manager, if I was Max Scherzer's manager and he gave me that look, I'd probably let him. You want to bat? I don't care.
Sure.
Which eye are you supposed to look into? The one that goes into his soul, or the one that reflects back to you?
One of them actually has big souls. So, but anybody who could tell you which one it was didn't survive the.
Right.
Is
I
it
mean,
kind of a Medusa factor.
I'd let Max Scherzer host the show if he looked at me like that. I'd be like, yeah, you're right. You're good at this. Now, one thing that is back, and I'll pick a little bit on Ben Verlander because he hates the phrase, but the ghost runner is back, and I don't think it's permanent. I'll start with Andy on this one. Is it the smart choice with the short spring training, or is it still going to kill your soul to see it happen?
I understand practically why it's happening, because we have a shorter spring training. We don't want to extend bullpens. We want the games to be shorter ostensibly, but we're trying to prevent injury. I understood it in the COVID season of 2020. I didn't really understand it last year, other than it just didn't get dealt with. This year, I was very happy to see it go away, and now it's back because we had a shortened spring training. The problem is, yes, it's temporary, but temporary in baseball means if you start a season with a rule, it has to run all the way through the season. They don't get to change rules in the middle of the year, because somebody will cry to heaven that, we had to play a 14-inning game and they only had to play a 10-inning game because they had ghost runners. So it'll be here for the rest of the year. I think it's overkill, and I don't think it's necessary. It's just annoying. I mean, it doesn't bother me as much. It's not destroying the integrity of the game or the soul of the game or anything, but the sooner it goes away, the happier I will be. Scott,
what do you think?
Just wondering if the runner on second base will be allowed to shift if they keep this rule after next year. Sorry. Had to. I don't like it. The 2 days that we talked about not having it, I thought I thought there was hope. I was really happy. I get that in other sports, like the NHL, when they go to overtime, it's 3-on-3 rather than 5-on-5. Open ice, only 3 guys at each end. The more action's going to happen,
sure,
so you can draw a conclusion quicker. Baseball's not played that way. Baseball's not a reactionary sport, right? The ball is put in play by an action motion. Whereas when a puck's going, you're reacting to it all the time. Basketball's the same way. I could understand if the NBA saw a problem and went to 3-on-3 or something like that for overtime. I get it. Baseball, it doesn't make sense to me to put the runner on second base. This feels a whole lot like, okay, guys, we got to hurry. We're due for dinner back at Mom's in 5 minutes. Let's just put a ghost runner out there. It worked for wiffle ball. It doesn't work for Major League Baseball.
And I don't know that the games actually proved to be much shorter. Like, I think than when we're using traditional extra inning rules.
It is going to avoid the 17 or 19 inning game, but that's about it, right? I mean, the average length isn't going to change that much.
But the other side of that is you just don't have that many extra inning games as a percentage of your inventory. I think it's less than like 8% of the games go into extra innings, and only like 2% of those go past like 11. That's over history. So, and I'm not making up those statistics as far as you know, but I think it's a lot of, let's go tinker with this thing that ultimately doesn't mean a lot because it looks like we're doing something. I don't think the players necessarily like it. I know certainly the home teams don't like it because it puts the onus on them to immediately come out and defend too quickly. I mean, it's just it messes up the pattern of baseball for me. And I don't know how to articulate it in that a bunt moves a runner to third, and now you've got 2 chances to get somebody over that you didn't earn any of that.
Right.
Baseball's all about earning those bases. You didn't earn any of that movement to getting that guy to third. And
what is this bunting you speak of?
Sometimes when the guys with the sticks, they swing really hard, but it doesn't go very far.
Yeah. Scott, I like to pay attention to college baseball where bunting happens still quite a lot.
Yes.
Thank God.
Yep.
I know I went to Andy first on the last question. I'm going to go to Andy first on this one because I really want an unfettered. What I hope I'm laying this up for comedic effect.
You unhook my bra.
Yeah, here you go. Surprise, surprise. The city of New York has decided that it's okay that players aren't vaccinated because, oh my God, Aaron Judge didn't get the vaccine. Did you see all that coming, or did you at least pretend to be shocked that they would compromise values for the New York Yankees?
Jim, it was entertainers and athletes. So, all those Broadway guys is what they were really trying to bring Broadway back, except they did bring Broadway back last year and didn't enforce that at all. I mean, they absolutely did make exceptions. Yeah, I can't think of the interesting thing to me is that were this a player on the Mets, I don't think anybody would have jumped through any kind of hoops or made any kind of exceptions. The fact that it's a Yankee, the fact that it's one of the more popular Yankees. I mean, honestly, if before he was traded, Voit had decided that he didn't want to be vaccinated or talk about his vaccination status, nobody would have cared what Luke Voit had to say about the issue. The Yankees are in an interesting position with Judge too, because they have to keep him happy because he's going to be a free agent relatively soon. And at some point he's going to have to produce like they pretend he produces. That's a whole separate segment on this show.
Are you saying that Aaron Judge is the Texas basketball of baseball players?
For the context of this show, yes. I'm saying that if he were playing in Kansas City, he'd be a nice midseason pickup that nobody had ever heard of.
But Scott, to Andy's point, Kyrie Irving, who it has a bigger impact on his sport than Aaron Judge has on his was not able to play home games. There's maybe 5 home games left for whatever team he plays for. Is it the Nets?
Brooklyn.
Nets?
Yeah.
So it really does shout that that's why they did it.
Yeah, I think you also have to look. We're at a different place right now in March of 2022 than we were when the NBA season was kicking off in September 21.
Sure, but I hate to interrupt, but I'm going to. But a week ago, they said they weren't going to make exceptions for athletes, and now they have. A week ago, we were in the same position.
Yeah. Now they have. What I'm saying is, in September there was a lot more. You didn't have a lot of other things opening up. People were still wearing masks. They're still being told to wear this everywhere. Yada yada yada. Now the mask mandates are coming down. Things have freed up. So I think. Is it silly? Did they do this just because of Judge? Yes. Well, I guess what I'm saying is if everything surrounding the time frame moved back to September, I think they would have done the same thing for a Kyrie Irving. But then again, it goes back to your point of the Yankees are here.
Yeah.
Mets and everybody else down a little bit. Yankee superstar.
I completely disagree. I don't I don't think Jay-Z still owns part of the Nets, but let's pretend he does. Hal Steinbrenner has more pull than Jay-Z with.
Sure, he does, but I'm saying there's no way they were going to pull that off in September, given the number of cases and everything else that's going on. Omicron was new and all of this, yada, yada, yada.
I do not like your logical approach to our conspiracy theory, sir.
Yeah. Hey,
well, this
is the tinfoil hat show, buddy.
Hey, all right. Well, you know me, I'm a Weird Al fan, so I.
Well, and you want to get tinfoil hat. They had to do it to distract from the letter that they're going to have to read in the next week or so.
Yeah, but they haven't read it yet. That's one of those things. Until I see the letter, until I hear it read, then the mic is going to to read.
It's going to be a picture of Mr. Burns and Lederhosen.
That's what I'm hoping. Look, we talked a little bit about the letter on Go Astros because I think Astros fans, most of us that are logical aren't like looking to dance on any graves or any of that stuff. I think it's really about, for 2 years, we were told a thing, which was in fact incorrect. And this is at least some justification. And I don't even care what it says. The fact is the Yankees are very afraid of what it says, which is all I need to know. If all it did was repeat what we already knew, they wouldn't want it not released. They would not have blocked it. And you already see, Andy, you're more on Twitter than Scott is, I think. There's already Yankee fans going, well, everyone cheats.
Of course there is. That's because that's what we were saying all of 2019 and 2020 when this all came out. It's the Astros were in a perfect storm because, I think they were scapegoated, but I also think that because COVID hit when it did and that report came out when it did, there was literally nothing else to talk about from a baseball perspective.
Yeah.
Had a normal season occurred after that report was out, it would have lasted for about 2 months and then it would have been over. Because there were no games until July, there was a lot of festering that was allowed to go on and a lot of conspiracy theories that were allowed to just go unfettered and
buzzers.
But all of that, I mean, there were media empires built on those conspiracy theories. Carlos Beltran's niece. It's just, it's silliness. And the Yankees fans who are now saying, well, it's not a big deal. They're right. It's not a big deal. Everybody's doing it. Just stop pretending. That's all that, as an Astros fan, and honestly, as a baseball fan, that's all I want. Just stop pretending. Every one of these teams is just as corrupt as the others. The teams that have money do it better.
It's not only stop pretending, but stop pointing your fingers at everybody else while you're pretending that you yourselves are fine. I guess that's the problem I had with all this. Had it been Tigers fans or Twins fans or Rockies fans that were saying, we don't cheat. Why is everybody else? Well, maybe then, we take some.
So Scott, are you saying
we take some heart to it?
Are you saying using the Rafael Palmeiro approach to?
I did not have anything to do with this. I am so guilty. I've got so many roids going through me right now, but I have to point my finger at you. I am raging like a crazed man right now, Senator.
I'm gonna rip your head off.
But no, I think the Yankees, just protested too. The Yankees fans protested too much, and then to Jim's point, they've dropped that veil, very quickly. It happens. Which I think was the point. I did a historical walkthrough of the first time somebody was caught cheating was in 1876. 9 freaking years after they started the sport. There's a big cheating scandal. It's gone. The Steins have been stolen forever. And were they using the latest technology to steal signs? Yeah, a whole lot of them were. It's absolutely true. And still batting averages are terrible. So, go figure that out. But it wasn't just the Astros. That's going to come to light. The problem is that the narrative has been out there for 2 years.
Right.
And you've worn the scourge, the letter of shame for this long. So it's just naturally going to still get stuck there, and the Yankees are going to get away scot-free.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I think it's unfortunate. I don't, I'm not like, I just want at least the peace of mind to be able to say, okay, because we all in our own ways took a lot of just BS abuse about it. And just really, I mean, obviously I'm glad it's over. I think honestly, looking at how I got to do a shout out to one of the Apollo guys, Copier Colin. He found a bunch of tweets of Twins fans saying, just trashing the Astros and Correa, and then put them together with their current tweets of, yay, we got Correa. And it was like, that dude kept receipts, and I'm mazel tov to him.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy through this, that one team is going to get the label, while everybody else, as that team parts apart, they're very happy to take your pieces. I promise you. Correa wants to leave, the Twins are going to snatch him up. If Berkman wants to leave somebody, not Berkman, but Bregman wants to leave, somebody's going to snatch him up. If Altuve leaves, people are going, we don't like him because of that he puts electronic things on his chest, and we know it. There were microphones there because John Boy told us so. But in the meantime, if he wants to sign over here with us for the next 7 years, that sounds really cool. As long as he hides his wires, we'd like that.
Yeah. I mean, it'll never happen because I think if there is one guy that Jim Crane's going to make sure always is an Astro, it's going to be Jose Altuve, because we're getting in. Assuming it goes well this year, we're going to be in the countdown for 3,000. He'll hit 2,000 at some point this year. Maybe he'll get close to it. So that's something they'll shoot for and get him there. But
the real reason the Astros want to always make sure they keep Altuve is because they have all the proof that he was using them wires.
But it would be interesting for me
if they let him get away.
Play for the Yankees for a season. I would love to see that, because I would love to see the mental gymnastics, just like, I mean, to a lesser extent in Minnesota, because I don't think the Minnesota fan base was up in arms like the Yankees fans are about Jose Altuve. And honestly, if I'm Jose Altuve, and I'm sure he's this way, that means I've arrived. This entire city hates me. Most of the Eastern Seaboard hates me because of what I do on a baseball field.
And all he does is rise to the occasion too. I mean, that's the thing. All right, well, let's wrap this up by Scott. Why don't you tell everybody what we're doing tomorrow?
Well, we are actually going to have a good time and make a splash that we talked to. We're actually going to do something that we've been talking about doing and really make it happen, which is completely unlike what John Mozeliak and the Cardinals did in the offseason with free agency, where they said we're going to make a big splash for Adam Wainwright and Jose and Yadi Molina's last year. We're going to make a big splash. And then the ghost of Rick, whatever his name is, from the pawn shop showed up and says, best I can do is Drew Vanderhagen. and that's what we got stuck with. So anyway, no offense to Drew Vanderhagen or whoever you are, good luck. And Steven Matz is, anyway, no big splash for the Cards. Thanks a lot. We are going to a Blues hockey game, and it will be Jim's first one. And
my first NHL game and like second hockey game overall.
Oh, and his seats are primo, but we're gonna have a great time out there as the Carolina Hurricanes come to town against your St. Louis Blues. Should be a great time.
Jim, do you have a sweater already?
So I've already bought a sweater. My fear is that it's a little too light. So I'll have a long sleeve t-shirt underneath. And if I need something heavier, I'll get it at the game.
Ignore science and drink a lot of alcohol. And you won't notice the ice.
He's going to do that. It's hockey. He's going to, that part will be, yeah.
Well, I was shocked because it's going to be 30 degrees tomorrow. Like,
yeah, it's actually dropped quite a bit. So it was rather nice yesterday, and had a front come through, and actually I was at a game last night, and walking out of there, my son and I were both remarking of, it's cold again. It's gotten coldy. And then I looked at the forecast and said, yeah, Jim gets to experience good hockey, because it doesn't feel right. If it's 92 degrees outside and you walk into an arena where it's freezing cold, there's something that goes on, and then your nose winds up sounding like this garbage.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's why October football is so much better than September football. November football is even better because the weather is cooperating. And when you're here in Texas, September football is miserable, and all our fan bases, Arkansas is probably the same way, as why in the world are we playing an 11 o'clock game in September in Texas? We're all going to die.
Yeah.
Well, there's rumors
also this year it was fun that Arkansas played a day game in January in Tampa.
Well, but I mean, like, there was a point where Jessica and I, when we still had season tickets to the Horns, were like, we're not going in September at all. Like, it's just too bad. And it looks like there's the possibility that Texas and Alabama are going to kick at 2:00 on Labor Day weekend. What?
Wow.
Like, they just need to survive.
Are they building the dome now? I mean, because I remember because the weather, it's always been hot in September watching these games. I remember watching some of those games from Texas when you had just that thin layer of AstroTurf and you could almost see the steam coming off the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. It's one thing to play baseball on the AstroTurf that was resonating heat like that, but football, oof.
Does Texas's stadium, that big cutout that you've put in the stands instead of seating you could sell, does that blow air conditioning?
There's seating in that cutout, bruh. There are bleachers. They're just nobody sat in them last year because it was 5. No, it does not blow air conditioning. All right, guys, we are going to get out of here. Again, we'll be back next week with Joys of Mudville, and partly we'll review my hockey experience. You guys take care.